Hi, folks. Welcome to Disability Landscape. I am Mark Knudsen, and today my co-host and joining me is Trish Carlberg, who, for our YouTube channel and show, she covers theater and arts for us. And I will have her introduce the guests that we have. It's all yours, Trish.
Yes, hello. So today we have the artistic director of Mixed Blood Theater, Jack Reuler, here with us. Jack, do you want to say hi?
Hello, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure. So today, Jack, we wanted to talk to you a little bit because we interviewed Reagan Linden a while back, and she was in one of your plays called The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. And so we just found that fascinating that Mixed Blood Theater was able to bring in an actress with disabilities into that play. So how important was it for Mixed Blood Theater to hire a person with disabilities for that role?
In that particular play, which is a play that centers around a character on the autism spectrum, it was important that the central character be someone with a disability. The role that Reagan played of the teacher, it was not written to be that way, but Reagan was by far the best actress for that role. And so it was important to me to have Reagan do that part, not Reagan, the disabled actor, but Reagan, the great actor who has a disability.
What I'm curious about, because Reagan lives out in Colorado,
Right.
and here you are here in Minneapolis with your theater. How did your two paths?
Yeah, Reagan and I
cross?
tend to be good friends, and I've had a long relationship with the University of California in San Diego, which is where Reagan went to graduate school.
Okay.
We met there
Yep.
in 2011 and have stayed friends, and now we're both artistic directors, and we speak almost every week.
Oh dear. Yeah. Yeah. It was a really good interview. We really enjoyed having her as a guest, and she can fill the time.
She is.
got
No,
a,
she has a lot to say, and I learn from her every week.
yeah.
So what's interesting, I don't know if this is appropriate, but there is a series of theater leaders with disabilities across the country that have weekly sessions, weekly or every other week, talking about the treatment that people with disabilities get in the American theater and how to improve upon that. And there will soon be a statement coming out for theater leaders everywhere to be aware of what they're not aware or to improve on which they're doing poorly but intentionally.
Yeah. And with your theater, it's very, very inviting and open to all individuals.
That's the hope. Should be inviting, welcoming, affirming place for everybody.
In fact, I'll let Trish ask the next question, but the one thing I do want to point out is, looking at your website, I love your picture on your website because it's just very inviting. It's like, I want you, come on in.
I've been there for quite a while.
Yeah.
So, Jack, what is it that you and Reagan talk about weekly? Is it about that statement that's going to be put out there?
I think that, and really I am just a host. There was in June a national statement put out by theater artists of color across America called We See White American Theater. And instead of having sequential movements, the idea was to partner with that group and be able to make a comparable statement that complements that says, as well as having, better anti-racist practices, and changing the white supremacist culture that has been prevalent in the American theater, we need to look at it through a number of lenses, through a lens of, a transgender lens, a disability lens, a race lens. And so all those conversations are happening now. And as theaters are trying to reinvent themselves during a time of COVID, I think they have the time and interest. It's a little interesting moment in time when those that are waging the revolution and those with the wherewithal to make change actually want the same thing. And some of them don't know how to get there, and some of them don't really even want to get there, but they need to get there. And so it's an interesting moment in time in which these different movements can change the inertia into momentum.
That's very interesting. And how many theaters, if you know, are involved in that talk and the discussion?
I would say that on a big week, there's 12 people in there, and
Okay.
usually there's 6 or 8. And they're
Mhm.
not always the same people, but yeah, there are people that are passionate about the way the American theater has mistreated people and about ways in which the theater can do better.
Now, with the theater here, with your theater Mixed Blood, give us a little history, kind of how, when it got started, when you got involved, kind of that good
I
stuff.
did start it, and I won't bore you with the story too much. Yeah, I went to, despite a family of university alumni, I went to McAllister, and while I was, and planned to be a veterinarian, planned to go to the U of M vet school. And, while I was in college, I was still an activist. This was the 70s, and had a job with a social service agency, the Center for Community Action, that during the school year, my job was to seek out needs in the community and set up programs to meet those needs. And a theater in the Round, which is just across 7 corners from
Yeah.
the flood, there was a provoking incident which made it clear that there was no professional opportunity for the theater artists of color in the Twin Cities. And it was the bicentennial. So America was trying to strut its ideals in every way possible in that year. And so, not knowing what I didn't know, through the Center for Community Action, I mean, and I had been raised that Dr. King was my childhood icon. The prevailing racial politics of America was the melting pot theory, in which we were supposed to create one sort of homogenous milquetoast common culture. And that's not what Dr. King had preached, and that's not what I believed in. And so during that bicentennial year, it was only supposed to be a summer project between college and vet school. I was going to rid America of all its isms in 3 months by doing plays in an old firehouse. And here I am 45 years later, barely making a dent. But so the social service agency, we went to the Bicentennial Commission. There was a federal program then called CETA, Comprehensive Employment and Training Act, that provided some funds for people. And we started this theater in the summer of 1976, did 6 plays that year, really trying to model a world in which people could pay positive attention to each other's differences, not no attention, as was the melting pot theory. And so we did that, and then I deferred pursuing vet school, and and we continued to make theater, and over time that mission expanded beyond race to race and culture, to race, culture, and gender. And then really it wasn't until the late 90s when I was introduced to Interact Theater, where I went into Interact and saw a better Mixed Blood than Mixed Blood was. That I realized how remiss we'd been in not manifesting disability into our mission. And so from then on, it's been an important part of what we've done for the last 20 years, in terms of artists, in terms of material we produce, in terms of the audiences we pursue, in terms of the facility we live in terms of the culture and values that we uphold.
That's real interesting that you had came into the understanding about Interact Theater. Mark and I have also had some experience with that theater when we approached them and invited them to come to our huge improv jam, which was meant to kind of bring in more of the disabled community into the theater so that they could jam and explore improv together. So I think that's marvelous that you had an opportunity to work with them as well.
Yeah, I mean, once I was introduced to them, and what we do very differently. than what Interact does. But in 2002, shortly thereafter, we actually did a co-production with people from the Interact company and people from Mixed Bloods company of a play called The Boys Next Door, which is about a group home. And it went very well. And the two companies merged well, and it was a successful show and a good partnership.
And then with your facilities and stuff like that, I would imagine you've had to go through some remodeling maybe, or gyrations to get it accessible and all that.
And we never, we don't take compliance as our baseline. We really want, as I said, what does it take in terms of the facility, in terms of the services, in terms of the programming, everything to be welcoming and affirming. And so, yes, in 1887, they were not, when that building was built, they were not as things. And so we have done a fair amount to the building, but a lot of it has been more in how we do what we do in the building. I mean, we didn't have elevators and lifts at the time. The way we had our stage and seats set up was not very welcoming.
Right.
Even our lobby and the way we welcome people. So we have done a major transformation in what that's been for people across the entire, and what we did starting in 2009 is we hired a year-round part-time disability organizer who then recruited an advisory council that we've had for the last 12 years that really advises us on the material we produce, on how we network and into different disability communities to become partners and audience members and artists alike. And then when we did work on the building, it was that advisory council that really worked on it. And Ralph Rapson, who is sort of a legendary architect, he himself a person with disability, was very keen on making sure we got it right. So there's things that are not perfect, but for an 1887 fire station doing what we do, our stages are higher for sight lines and usually ramped. The seats have more, we made a much bigger distance between the seating risers, and so that anybody with a disability can sit anywhere. We do super titles for people, with, and we do ASL. We don't just do audio description once per run, but we actually have figured out how to mechanize it. So anybody, who's blind can come and see any performance and have audio description anytime. They don't just have to be funneled into one. And same thing, people with hearing loss but not deaf, we have those super titles for. And there's a lot of it. Free transportation. We have a whole policy called radical hospitality, which is a core value, which allows anyone to see any show for free. And that really came out of this work. We didn't want to segregate our audiences in ways that was antithetical to who we were. And so we just said, instead of just these people getting a discount or these people being free, we just said everybody's free.
Okay.
And so we tried to just eliminate as many barriers to successful participation as we can. And hopefully we get better at it each year.
Now that play that you mentioned earlier with Interact, I'm not sure if that was the same play that I was thinking of. And in 1999, it says that there was a play that focused on people with disabilities. Which play was that?
So the very first play we did in that first year was a play written by a quadriplegic playwright in Chicago named Mike Irvine called The History of Bowling. And it featured a quadriplegic character, someone who was blind, someone with an invisible disability, someone with a brain injury. And it really had nothing at all to do with bowling, but it was woven into the text, how he came up with that title. But it was, it was our first foray into it. And I would say we've come a long way since then. That two of the actors in that show that played characters with disabilities were themselves not disabled. that would never be the case today. You know, it's interesting, over the years, our advisory council, when we ask, you know, is it more important to do shows about disability and hire artists with disabilities, or just to do plays and hire artists with disabilities to do those plays? And the recommendation has been the latter. Now, we have chosen to do both. I think Reagan in The Curious Incident, Reagan, an actress with a disability playing a character not written to be played by an actor with a disability, what she brought to that role was fantastic because she's a great actor. But that, I think, is an example, that show, which had a character, you know, an actor with cerebral palsy playing the central role in that. It was a great experience.
Yeah, that's a, you know, just thinking about that more too, it is interesting having, like you just mentioned, having a play and having an actor who is disabled, but they're just playing out a role. And, you know, the role wasn't written or meant for a disabled individual, but yeah, I think, you know, that if at first I'm like, that would be tough to do, but then I'm like, Mark, what are you thinking? What's so tough about it? I mean, you just go out there and use your skills.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things on that play was people who had seen you know, it had been done on Broadway and toured, but there hadn't been any other productions until ours. And so people who knew the play somehow kept expecting Reagan during curtain call to get out of her chair, and that was some sort of artistic choice we'd made rather than the actor we'd cast. So it was an interesting, and Reagan in another play that we did played the governor of California in a show that we did over at CHS Field. It was a play called Safe at Home. And Reagan was in that. It was, again, the governor of California was, you know, not written to be a character with a disability, but we cast Reagan because she's awesome.
Did that Curious Incident of the Dog, did that create some discussion around autism and the spectrum?
And, you know, it was the fifth autism play we had done over a 10-year period. We had done a play called Vestibular Sense, another one called On the Spectrum, another one called Theory of Mind, and yet another one. So it wasn't a one and done effort. It was one of many plays about autism that we had done over time. But it was a great production and a great script based on a great book.
You had mentioned that, I believe, the individual in Chicago, the individual who was a quadriplegic is a playwright, you said, is that correct?
Yeah, so the playwright was, and then a different person, the actor who played the central character, also
Was a quadriplegic. And then do you see now more individuals with disabilities getting involved in all aspects of the theater? You know, I mean, playwright, actor, actress, directing, all the other components.
Yes. Designers. Yes, absolutely. And I think the field is now getting wise that there is this pool of talent about which they have not let themselves be aware and are starting to hire people. And I hope when we come back to whatever we're going to become, that they hire them more and more. And these people in this weekly group are just, you know, they're the top of the field in terms of just great thinkers, great minds, and great artists.
Well, I think once we get past this COVID stage, I know for us, I think we're going to have to go back on these interviews that we've done and actually go to the sites now. I think when we're able to get back out, we have to do another interview with you actually at the Mixed Blood.
That'd be great. And hold us to the highest bar. I think that's really important. You know, some of the things we've done over time beyond the programming, you know, I mean, so some of the things that we did was we did a study on blind people. What are the barriers they have to going to theater in general and to Mixed Blood more specifically? over a period of time. And there were about 40 people that participated in that. Rob Lee, who is our, who works for Mind Body Solutions, was our staff person. And he led that. And then we did a thing called Disability Visibility, where we got probably about 60 plays that we screened down to about 60 plays that had characters with disabilities in it. And we got some money and we gave any theater that would do any of these plays and cast them right $5,000. So if you pick this play off this list and you do it and cast it appropriately, we were giving theaters $5,000. That was called Disability Visibility. And there's just been a lot of things like that that we've done to try to move the field along. And we have a long way to go, and the field has a terribly long way to go. And so one of the interesting things, while this We See White American Theater effort that's going on in America is really trying to take theater leadership to change their ways, one of the methods of this Theater Makers with Disabilities is to go to funders and say, don't, we want you to make these theaters' relationship with disability communities central before you fund them. And so now you're starting to hit organizations in their pocketbook, and I think people will pay attention. So we'll see how that effort goes. And
Yeah.
there are some foundations that are very strongly in a, not about us without us mindset, and others that aren't.
And I was also, looking at the website too. I mean, you're a theater, but you get the community involved in so many aspects, because on your site you have Zelia's Helians. That's
It's a speaker series.
yeah. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Well, Zealous Hellions, it is that, we just try to get some thought leaders who have a lot of energy and who sort of buck the system a little bit. And so that is what that's been. As a matter of fact, one of the people, as it relates to this conversation, that we've approached is Tammy Duckworth to join that, the senator from Illinois. So we hope that'll be able to happen. And anyway, we're going to try to do one a month for the next 6 months. So we have, as a matter of fact, one of the people that's this month on the 17th of December is a writer, director, actor named Aditi Kapil, who lived here for many years, and now she's become a TV writer, as happens to all great theater people. And she is the mother of a daughter on the autism spectrum. And so she wrote a play called Orange that we did in 2016 that was an interesting thing, because it was a play, about disability written by a person without a disability. But it was a very personal, firsthand, a lovely piece about being both South Asian and with autism. And it was a lovely piece. And anyway, so she is now writing for Netflix. And so she is coming back from LA via Zoom to join us. But then we have Don Cheadle. We just had Keith Ellison.
Yeah, I noticed that one. Yep.
The election, and some other great people that we've approached. We're hoping that Martin Luther King III, we're talking to his representatives, will also join us. Anyway, we have a lot of interesting requests. People like Temple Grandin, who we couldn't afford, to tell you the truth.
Jack, I was also going to ask too if Mixed Blood, if it's going to get on board with the virtual shows, or if you have any upcoming ones.
We do. We have something we just call One Minneapolis, in which we asked a number of people. So so there actually is a local writer performance artist named Oyeme Duchess, who has a commission, and her piece will be in February. But we have just in the next couple of weeks, there'll be some more virtual programming with a lot of great local actors and talent doing creation of things. And then we have a walking play we're doing in Cedar Riverside. It'll all be just It's probably the wrong, because it'll end up being virtual, but we will take you through Cedar Riverside and tell a tale about the complexity of that neighborhood. Anyway, and then we did with Health Partners and Twin Cities Public Television, we made 4 films that were really good, just good stories, well told, but about these different communities. The subtext in each of them is cultural disparities to quality healthcare. And in doing so, so one is a Somali film. It's all with Somali actors done in Somali with English subtitles. A story called From Head to Toe. And then there's a story, an African-American story called Which Exit, written by Syl Jones and Joe Manjaris, who used to own Pepitos and is a great theater artist and writer, wrote a piece called Alberto's Chicken Dinner. But they deal with the social determinants of health, not just, I got a sore knee, I'm going to the doctor. It's really how do all these things fit together. Anyway, there's 4 of those online films that'll happen once a month for the next 4 months as well.
Okay. Well, great. No, this got to wrap it up here now so we can stay under our half-hour time limit.
Okay, well, I look forward to seeing it when you get it out, and I hope I've been a helpful guest.
Oh, no, you most definitely been helpful, and I want to thank you once again. And once everything starts opening up, we'll definitely have to come down and check out your theater. So
I look forward to that.
Okay, thank you for joining us, Jack. Tricia, thank you again. And this is Mark Knutson for Disability Landscape.